Morning, Brent.
Hi, Sylvia. Hi, John.
Hey, Brent, next week when are you going to be gone next week?
No, I'm not.
Oh, okay. So you can still host this.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah. Bald Head
Fun?
canceled all their services.
Event.
So we'll be here.
Morning, Chip.
Good morning.
Hi, John Hesselman. I think you're in there. It's a little dark.
Good morning. I'm in here.
Turn the lights on in your house.
Yeah.
Hi, John.
Brother
Barry.
Dave is with me today here
Who's
on Joppa Road.
Who's that?
Brother Dave.
Her best looking brother.
Okay.
He's here today. We had the tractors out yesterday.
Oh, did you?
I told him we need to stop by and see your car.
Yeah. Stop by and drive it.
Stop by and drive the Jeep, the
MG.
Probably couldn't get in it.
Well, Nancy can. It takes a half hour, but to lower in.
Wow.
Good morning.
Hey, Lynn.
Hi, Sylvia. Hi, Danny. Dave.
Hi there.
Brother Dave.
You can sit here. We were using Dale's laptop to try to get Dave on his own station here, but somehow or another, it's a little outdated.
More smarter than I am.
We got Zoom loaded on it just fine, but it won't take the number for this meeting for some reason.
Hi, Dan Berger.
Good morning. Good
Morning,
morning.
Dan.
Good morning. Good morning. A little information before things get started. I've lost my address book. My phone is not divulging phone numbers. So any of you that have my phone number, if you could send me a text so I can recover your phone number, I'd certainly appreciate it.
Okay.
Even Apple says, I don't know what you did, but it's gone.
Oh dear.
Wow.
So what number is that I should send it to?
317-601-2196.
2196. 601-2196.
Now, Sylvia, this is your big brother.
Yes.
Hello.
Hi there.
Morning, Wanda. Morning, Norma. Morning, John and Betty.
Morning, Wanda.
Nice morning.
Organ music.
Ah. Good morning, cousin.
Good morning.
Brent, you do a good job of playing the organ.
Thank you. You'll see the box that says Thomas. Thomas is the photographer from Magnum who's joining us today. He's doing a documentary, a photojournalism essay on how folks are using Zoom in this pandemic time, and so is.
It's great.
Are all your beans in, Steve?
Yes, thank you.
Morning, Tom Roberts.
Good morning, friends.
Yep.
Okay.
Mute.
Well, Nancy's getting settled into her pew.
Sort of.
Welcome, everyone, to Meeting for Worship. And I would remind you to, if you can, please put your microphone on mute to avoid feedback, and unmute when you feel led to speak in the Quaker fashion. Are there prayer concerns or things that need to be shared before we enter into worship?
Well, those of you who are from West Newton regularly are familiar with my niece and nephew, Josh and Jennifer Heyer, who are missionaries in Peru. Just got an email from them this morning. They are in day 90 of their quarantine, and the country is really, really struggling. They've tried to do the right things, but because there is so much poverty and all of that, the right things aren't working. So it's really very serious there. So I know they would appreciate our thoughts and prayers.
And I got a note from Progressa, which is the Guatemalan Friends scholarship program, which works with Mayan students in Guatemala. The director there sent a note about how it's impacting, especially up in the mountains where most of their students live, and that most of the cases that have started, the majority of the contacts can be traced to Guatemalans who were deported from the U.S. back to Guatemala. Well, let's hold these. I'm sorry. Well, let's hold these concerns and others in the light. And I'm the worship leader this morning, so I will begin when I feel led. Well, I know a number of you have known me for a long time, some almost 40 years now, but there are probably a few things you don't know about me. And I don't think many people know that when I was in high school, I worked for a florist. I was initially hired as a gopher and then ended up being a general handy person and delivery truck driver. The main reason I got hired by that florist was a family connection. One is the florist shop was Stevens Florist, and it was owned by Brent Stevens, which is who I was named for. The second reason probably is because my dad had worked for that florist when it was Walter J. Stevens Florist. That's where he met Brent when Dad was in high school. And they made I think they had the mistaken impression that since my dad was a real hard worker, that I would be. So they hired me. And one of my first jobs that summer was that I started there was to wash the windows in the shop. It faced out on a main drag in Columbus. And so I never washed windows before. So they gave me a quick lesson with a bucket and full of sudsy water and a rag and a squeegee, which I'd never used before. And as my British friends would say, I made a right proper mess of it. So I had to do it again to learn to use the squeegee right, and how often to wipe off the squeegee, and how often not to let the soap dry as the sun hit the windows and all that. And the only reason I tell that story is because yesterday I decided, after putting it off for far too long, it was time to start washing the windows here. There's one window that those of you who have visited here know that I won't be washing since it's 2.5 stories high. But all the rest of them needed it, and we've been talking about it for a long time, washing the windows, especially since the carpenter bees have been busy around this house and have deposited what can only be politely called as bee poop all over them. I always wondered what that was, and so I researched it. And so I did the back half of the house yesterday outside. Took detergent, and most of the windows had to be washed 3 times. Not because I was as bad as when I was 16, but it just took that much to get them clean. And so later, we came inside, and Laura and Lisa and Mark and Michael came over. And we were sitting on the porch, and they were like, "We can see out the windows." And you did a really good job, Dad. It was like, thank you. And I began thinking about how long we hadn't been able to see clearly out the windows, and how long, and I began to think about eyesight. How long do I go sometimes before clearing my spiritual sight? One of my favorite stories from the Bible when I was a kid was the story of blind Bartimaeus. We used to sing a song, the blind man stood by the road and cried, "Show me the way to go home." But the story is recorded in Matthew. Says, when they came to Jerusalem, as Jesus and his disciples, together with a large crowd, were leaving the city, a blind man, Bartimaeus, which means son of Timaeus, was sitting by the roadside begging. When he heard that it was Jesus of Nazareth, he began to shout, "Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me." Many rebuked him and told him to be quiet, but he shouted all the more, "Son of David, have mercy on me." Jesus stopped and said, "Call him." So they called to the blind man. I love this line. "Cheer up. Cheer up. On your feet. He's calling you." Throwing his cloak aside, he jumped to his feet and came to Jesus. "What do you want me to do for you?" Jesus asked him. The blind man said, "Rabbi, I want to see." "Go," said Jesus, "your faith has healed you." And immediately he received his sight and he followed Jesus along the road. I think of the windows and being blind, how often the windows of my soul, I think I forget to wash. Laura and Lisa, who were here yesterday, both worked for Plainfield Eye Care, and they do those tests: is A better, is B better, is this and that, and they try different filters. And I think of all the filters that I have, and the filters that we all have that change our sight or make us unable to see. The filters of racism, political filters that we have that blind us to new insight from somebody who's not of our persuasion. Religious filters sometimes that have us block this person or another person because of their faith or their interpretation of the shared faith that we have. There was a post on the Association of Bad Friends the other day that said, "I'm a such and such, would I be welcome at Quaker meeting?" And the person who replied said, "Well, of course you would. The only people who aren't welcome at Quaker meeting are other Quakers of a slightly different persuasion than us." And I thought, sadly, that's too often true, the filters that we have. And so I've been thinking a lot about what filters do I have that I need to let drop in this COVID time, this political time, this time of racism and strife in our country, so that I can truly see what is going on, and so that God can speak to me and say, what is my part in this world, and what ministry, what work am I called to do, so that the light of Christ can really enter my soul, but also shine out from it. London Yearly Meeting in 1879 reminds us that the light that shines into our hearts is not of us, and it must ever be distinguished both from the conscience, which it enlightens, and from the natural faculty of reason, which, when unsubjected to its holy influences, is in the things of God very foolishness. I mean, it's our little bit archaic language, but if left to our own devices without God, we are foolish. As the eye is to the body, so is conscience to our inner nature, the organ by which we see, and as both light and life are essential to sight in the natural eye, so conscience as the inward eye cannot see aright without the quickening and illumination of the Spirit of God. So my prayer for me, and also for all of us, is that in these dangerous and confusing times, that we wash our spiritual windows or get a spiritual eye check, that we cry out Jesus, Son of David, have mercy on me. That we be given the sight and the light of Christ within us. George MacDonald wrote a poem, the great Scottish person of faith and poet, about blind Bartimaeus. He says, as Jesus went into Jericho town, was darkness all from toe to crown about blind Bartimaeus. He said, my eyes are more than dim, they are no use for seeing him. No matter, he can see us. Cry out, blind brother, cry. Let not salvation dear go by. Have mercy, Son of David. Though they were blind, they both could hear. They heard and cried, and he drew near. And so the blind were saved. May we ask the Spirit of Christ, the light of Christ, to enlighten our eyes in this and every time, so that we might be faithful witnesses in this world. Well, we're at the end of our time for this week, friends. Is there anything else that needs to be shared before we say goodbye until next week? Or until some of us rejoin for unprogrammed worship in about 15 minutes?
Brent, may I invite people? Next Sunday is Father's Day, and when I was asked to lead worship that day, I said, how about if we do a repeat of what we did on Mother's Day and invite you all to bring something or talk about something intangible that your father has given you that means a lot, and try to be a little brief about telling about it, but I think that sharing time will be very precious, as it was when we did it on Mother's Day.
Great.
Sylvia, who's that handsome gentleman sitting next to you this morning?
This is my older brother, Dave. We had the tractors all out and going yesterday. Anybody want to ride on
Dave.
Morning.
37A,
36.
36A? Just come right on over.
And you can start it.
Yeah.
Well, it's good to see you all. Take care, and till we meet again.
Thank you.